Welcome to Witch Talks, the series for spiritual seekers, witches, and enlightened souls. I'm Hana the Suburban Witch, professional tarot reader, astrologer, and witch, and I hope you're ready to get up close and personal with your favorite witches. Hello, welcome. I'm so happy that you're here with me today for another Hana Help Me episode on the podcast. If you have a question that you would like me to answer, please send it to info@suburbanwitchery.com. If you haven't guessed from the title, this episode is around kids and witchcraft. Does this mean it's not applicable for people without children? Absolutely not. Honestly, this is going to be a really great episode if you're not really sure on how to work with the moon or some really simple introductory magic that anyone of any age can try. Plus, who knows when you'll make a friend who already has kids, or you have a sibling that has kids. There are kids around in the world, and they might ask questions about your amazing witchiness, and this will be a great place to point them. So today's question says, Hana, help me. This morning on the drive down to Melbourne to Grandma's house, my daughter wanted to listen to Hana the Witch in the car, but specifically the kids one about the moon. I couldn't figure out what episode that could have been, so she wanted me to get you to make an episode like that, please. From Zoey, aged 3.5, who insists she's 4. Well, Zoey, this episode is for you and any other children, big or small, who want to listen and learn as well. I also think you'd like my mini kids series on YouTube called Storytime with Hana, where I read you some amazingly witchy kids books. Now, instead of just making this only about the moon, I thought we could use the moon as our basis, so it's about the moon and some kid-friendly witchy stuff alongside that. Basically some easy kid magic ideas. I hope that's okay with you, Zoey. So parents, most kids are naturally witch adjacent. Kids love to mix potions in the backyard, and they have a thriving imagination, which in turn means excellent visualization skills. Kids are drawn to crystals, to animals, to nature in general, and their belief in possibility is unrivaled and something we as adults should take note of. If the kids in your life are showing an interest in any of these things, it is not wrong to indulge them. They'll let you know if it changes and isn't right for them anymore. A lot of folks have some internalized religious guilt around children and spiritual practices, but remember, religious trauma comes from the doctrines, the control, and the fear. If you keep things light and flexible and changeable, you and your children will be fine. So parents, caregivers, witchlings, it is very easy to tune into the moon. And this can be a great tool in the parenting tool belt too. If you do know your moon sign, your children's moon sign, it can be helpful to pay attention to when the moon is also in that sign. I have 2 Virgo moon kids and a Virgo moon husband. And let me tell you, they all lose the plot once a month when the moon is in Virgo. I love that I get a heads up knowing the cycles of the moon, so I know when this is going to happen. And it means I know they need lots of outdoor time on those days, if possible. So let's talk about the moon and its cycles. The moon averages a 28-day cycle around the Earth. That's almost a month. Now, technically, it only takes 27.3 days to go all the way around the Earth. But we normally count a lunar cycle from new moon to new moon, which actually takes 29.5 days. So this is something that's easier to understand by seeing it so going outside and looking at the moon, than me just telling you numbers. So I'm sure you've noticed before that the moon sometimes isn't in the sky at all. It's super dark and we can't find it anywhere. This is usually the dark or new moon phase of the cycle. A few days later, if you wandered outside at night again, you might notice what's called a waxing crescent moon. Waxing just means it's getting bigger. Now, the waxing crescent moon, I always think looks like a fingernail clipping. Ew. But perhaps the moon goddess is cutting her nails that night, and maybe it's a good time to cut yours too. That's what I tell my kids at least. Now, here's a fun little fact. If you live in the northern hemisphere, this waxing crescent moon will show the light hitting the right-hand side of the moon from your vantage point, from where you stand. And it will grow over the moon cycle from right to left over the next 2 weeks, up to the full moon. But if you live in the southern hemisphere, like I do in Australia, this waxing crescent moon shows the light hitting the left-hand side of the moon from your vantage point, and it will grow from left to right over the next 2 weeks. But Hannah, how does that work? Well, I'm going to give you a little science experiment to do at home. If you draw a picture with a red dot on one side, let's say the right side of your paper, and a green dot on the left side, and ask someone to hold it for you. When you look at it, the red dot will be on the right and the green dot on the left. But if you turn around and you look through your legs so it's upside down, you'll notice that the red dot is now on the left side from how you're looking at it, and the green is on the right. Basically, you get a different view of the same paper. Just like the people in England get a different view of the moon to me here in Australia. One of us is, in a way, seeing it upside down. Back to the crescent moon though, this is a wonderful time for you to start something new. Make a wish, pick a goal, go and borrow some books to read, or plant a seed. Now, 1 week later, that new waxing crescent moon suddenly looks a bit different. It will look a bit bigger. Now it's going to look like a semicircle. That's like a circle folded in half. We call this stage the first quarter. I like to keep that momentum going with whatever I started the week before. A few days later, you might go outside and notice that, oh my goodness, the moon looks big. Is it a full moon? Perhaps not quite. There's a phase called the waxing gibbous, which is a weird word, I know. And that's when the moon is changing from first quarter to full. Now, you'll know it's a full moon when it's been at least 2 weeks from the new moon, when it was fully dark in the sky. And for a full moon, the whole circle of the moon will be bright. Now, here's a hot tip. If you want to do some magic, this is a really great time to do it. Full moons are powerful. You might also notice it's a bit trickier to get to sleep. So perhaps have your parents make you a full moon cup of tea with something like chamomile and apple. My kids love that. You can even speak your wishes over your tea before you drink it. See if your parent can find out the sign that the full moon is in too. Hot tip, folks, I have these listed in my witchy desktop planners so you never miss a full or new moon. Or you can find them listed on my full moon blog post. If the full moon is in a fire sign, it might be a fun idea to do something creative, like a full moon dance outside, or paint a picture of you doing something cool that you want to do when you're older. If the moon is in an earth sign, you might like to do a magical full moon cleanup. Now, I know what you're saying, Hannah, that's not very magical or fun, but I assure you it is. I am a witch, and there is magic in cleaning up. Because when we tidy up, we actually magically shift the energy of the space, which gives us room for new opportunities to come in. You could also plant something. During a full moon, it's best to plant a bulb or a root crop like carrots. Now, if the moon is in an air sign, it's a great idea to write a story about yourself. Write about who you are and who you want to be, anything you wish you would change, or what's making you feel happy and inspired. If writing's a bit tricky for you now, you can tell an adult what you want to write, and they'll help you. And if the moon is in a water sign, this is when you might want to take a full moon bath. Dim the lights if you can, candles or a salt lamp in a safe place out of reach of little hands, and a big handful of Epsom salt or sea salt in the bath can be amazing. Try to refrain from using any essential oils in the bath with kids, unless you've pre-diluted them in an oil, because oil and water don't mix. Big safety concern there. So choose some witchy music. My kids love Peter Gundry, and you can place some rose quartz in the bath with you too. This makes you an ingredient in a witchy potion. One we don't drink, because as I tell my kids, with bath water, it's basically butt water, because your butt is in the water. And you don't want to drink butt tea. That's not very nice. After the full moon is over, you'll notice the moon's light begins to shrink again. Within a couple of days, it's in the waning gibbous stage. It's that weird word again, but now we say waning instead of waxing. Waxing means getting bigger, waning means getting smaller. I like to use this as a cue to start slowing down, finishing projects, making sure those books we borrowed in the earlier phase have been read, or at least will be finished very soon. And then, a week after the full moon, it goes back to the first quarter, because it's a semicircle again. But really, this is called the last quarter moon. It will be lit on the left if you're in the northern hemisphere, and on the right side of the moon if you're in the southern hemisphere. Again, remembering to slow ourselves down, have a rest. A fun bit of magic to do here is find a feather and speak to it about everything you want to let go of. Maybe you'll say, "Feather, I don't want to be sad about my favourite top being too small for me now. I want to be happy about the new clothes I get to wear and how fun they can be." And then place your feather and any other worries you have at the base of a tree. Then we might notice that the moon becomes a skinny crescent shape again, called a waning crescent. This can be a good time to cut those toenails before it returns to darkness in the sky. This is when the Earth's shadow hides the moon, so the sun can't reach it or reflect it back to us. So the moon is still there, we just can't see it. This is a good time to take your books back to the library. And if you've been having any bad dreams, this is a really good time to banish them. My eldest usually writes the word bad dreams on a scrap piece of paper. We then burn it in my mini cauldron outside, chanting, "Bad dreams, go away. Bad dreams, go away. Bad dreams, go away," and dancing in a circle until it burns all the way up. Now, she's almost 8, so this is a little bit more of an older kid thing than a younger kid thing, depending on the kid as well, and with parental supervision. If fire is not the way to go for you, you can do something similar, but flush it down the toilet instead. Now, tarot and oracle cards are wonderful for kids as well. Kids are naturally very good at it, because usually they don't have that internal voice trying to get things right and blocking them. It's just an extension of play. The Sweet Foragers deck is a good one for kids because it's small and light and all in pastel tones. I also love the Magic Tarot. It has some cartoonized nakedness, but I adore it for the bright colours. And my kids love the Mythos Tarot, which is the Greek gods and goddesses, because they're so pretty. They also love the Soul Cats Tarot. And I have a new deck called the Tarot of Tales, which I think is wonderful for children. All of these are shown on my YouTube channel, except the Tarot of Tales is coming soon, if you want to check them out before purchasing something. With oracle decks, my kids love the Winter Seer Animal Oracle, although some of the write-ups do mention some older words, but seriously, what kid is going to be reading the guidebook? So one way we use the Winter Seer Animal Oracle, for example, is that my eldest has been trying to figure out her own version of ornithomancy, a form of bird divination, under my guidance. She wanted to know what it meant when a bat flies over her head, so we pulled an oracle card and used that meaning. There is an oracle card in there for the symbolism around bats, but instead of just relying on that, she wanted to know what this specifically meant for her when this thing occurred. So pulling a card from it and leaning into it and writing that down to refer to when it next happens is the best way to start building that dictionary of meanings for her personally. We did the same for crows and lorikeets as well. So a card for each gives us an idea of the meaning. And now she's simply observing and looking back at this little personalized dictionary she's making to start taking messages from the birds and their interactions around her. Now, when the kids have nightmares or they can't sleep or they feel nervous or worried about something, I always let my kids pick a crystal from my collection to put in their pocket or pillowcase. Some other ways they're involved in my witchy practice is we make coffee for the ancestors together. I invite them if they want to come with me to visit their great-grandparents' graves and bring them flowers and more coffee and a biscuit. We light candles on the Sabbats. We tell ghost stories on the winter solstice. We have a big outdoor gathering on the summer solstice. And lastly, we had a bullying incident at school recently. So a protective sigil went into my kid's pocket, along with some spoken word charms, and that helped tremendously. So Zoe, I hope this gives you what you were looking for in some information about the moon, and I hope this inspires you and any other kids that are listening to go outside, look at the moon, and do something with that information. Figure out what phase it is and choose a small activity to do. It doesn't have to be that night if you've got to get into bed. We can do it during the day. That's okay. The moon is still there. It's still doing its thing. It's still affecting us, whether we see it or not. Now, folks, this concludes the podcast for 2024. This is the final episode for the year because I am taking a break for Christmas. The next episode will be in January, releasing on the 15th. And that is an episode on reclaiming your body after high control religion. That will be a really wonderful resource for many of you, I'm sure. In the break, I recommend you catch up on episodes that you've missed. Share this podcast with a friend. I have big growth goals and I can't get there if no one shares it. So please, if you love the podcast, send it to someone. Expand the listenership. Be part of my witchy MLM. You tell someone, they tell someone, etc. Also, we have the Word of the Year readings coming back next week. These were insanely popular last year. They're back again. They're really super duper affordable. $10 for a personalized reading from me. That is insane. I don't know why I do it. I think it's fun. So definitely jump on that. They do coincide nicely with the planning class, which will also be out next week, and that's how to plan your year the witch way. On the topic of planning stuff, we have the planners that I make are out now. There is a digital version for both the northern and the southern hemisphere, and I have physical copies for the southern hemisphere. Granted, I only have about 30 of those left, so you better jump in quick. And if you want to support the podcast and support me and what I do and get a bunch of extra cool bonus stuff as well, you'll want to join the society. The Suburban Witches Society is my favourite thing in the world, and it can be a little present to yourself as well for Christmas. We do monthly group readings on the first Friday of the month, where you can ask me anything. I'll pull a card, I'll look at your astrology chart, advice on a spell, whatever it is. I'm your witch. We're doing magic mail for Christmas, so like a pen pal thing. And the resource for this month, because there's a new resource every single month, at least one. The resource is a PDF on the Major Arcana tarot cards. Each one has a opening line suggestion, like a writing prompt if you're a writer. Then there is physical characteristics associated with this card if you were to create a character, along with the age and mannerisms. And finally, a genre, a writing prompt, and a story concept. So it's a very interesting way to get to know the cards a bit deeper. Help if you're a writer, artist, any of those sorts of things. And it's just overall a really fun resource. And that's just this month. So I hope to see you there. As always, have a lovely day wherever you are in the world today. Enjoy the upcoming solstice next month. Summer solstice for us in the southern hemisphere, and northern hemisphere you'll have the winter solstice. Have a wonderful Christmas if you celebrate, and I'll catch you all in the new year.